Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order our March 24th ACSD board meeting. And at this time, I would like us to go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Jason.
Jason Chance.
Ellen Wheelan-Weist.
Steve Cash.
Trisha Allen.
Jess Venable Novak.
Ron Mackler.
Laura Harthan.
Steve Orzak.
Mary Heather Noble.
Barbara Wilson.
Wendy Baker.
Jamie McCallum.
Suzanne Buck.
And Ellie is coming, so she'll be a few minutes late. Go ahead, Matt and
Courtney
Courtney.
Braun, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Matt Krosky, Director of Finance and Operations.
Excellent, thank you all. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda, that would be great.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention, and I had it in my email, we're gonna be a little bit flexible if it's okay with you. The lawyer will be coming in, and I told him 7. He may be here a little bit, so what we'll do is try to break it as we can, if that's okay, and if we're already in the superintendent portion, Wendy will kind of just finish that one topic, and then we'll turn it over and go into executive session. So that's, what I think we'll do. That way we utilize his time the best, if that's okay. All those in favor of adopting the agenda with a little flexibility, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Next is our first public comment period. This is the time that the public can come to us, and we definitely encourage folks, and I'm going to go to my cheat sheet. We encourage comments at our meeting, and if there are comments, we request that you limit them to 3 minutes per person. And as a reminder, public comment period is not designed to be a discussion, but rather an opportunity for board members for us to listen to you as constituents. And please remember that comments regarding personnel, students, or legal matters will not be heard, by the board at this time. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a public comment? How about on Zoom? If you could raise your Zoom hand. Give a second there. Seeing none. Okay. Oh, if there's no public comments, then we can move to the next agenda item, which is a recommendation to approve the minutes of our March 10th meeting. If I could have a motion. Thank you, Suzanne.
I move to recommend approving of the minutes of March 10th, 2025 as written.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And Jamie, second. Any discussion on our minutes? No? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 10th, 2025, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes have been approved. Next on the agenda is approval of the ACSD bills, and as we did last board meeting, I've asked Jason to do the readout for us because we haven't reorged completely the committees. And so Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Let's see here. On the 14th, I approved the bills. I'm not sure if anyone else approved the bills. Maybe you. I did not hear back that anyone else was able to review the bills. But we did have 2 warrants. One was a general fund warrant for $353,611.26, and a payroll warrant for $998,145.41. A couple questions. They were all answered quickly and easily. So.
Okay, so a question I have, and it's maybe to Matt. I know there's a signature, it's required that we have 2 board members sign off on those. I would be happy to come in, or if someone else would like to come in and review the ledger. I know I've done it before, so it might be easier for me to do it. So,
It's any two board members
yeah,
based on the articles that were signed.
yeah,
and the
exactly.
Resolutions that were signed. So,
Yep. So,
I don't know if that would be a permanent thing or if you would switch.
no,
to
I
two
think once the,
members of board.
yeah, once the committee's officially reorged, then the committee can kind of sort out typically who's gonna review the bills. And if there's time when there isn't two people to do it, then just let me know, and then I can see if I can get someone else to help in reviewing the bills as well.
There's also usually one or two times over the course of the year where it might be helpful to have a third reviewer for the sake of, somebody from the team is on vacation and we
Right.
want to get it, so it's good to have that extra.
Yep. Okay, this is the first time that's happened, so, but I think we can go ahead and approve the bills as a board based on Jason's report. And did Jason make a motion? I was talking, yeah. So why don't, you want to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we approve the bills as read on March 17th.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
Could I ask?
Yes.
Is there any time requirement that says that bills have to be approved within a certain amount of time? There is?
They're
Yeah.
approved on the Monday, treasurer signs checks on Tuesday.
So that's statute, that's guidance from the district. What are we bumping up against here?
Operational.
It's operational?
Yeah.
So
Checks that
Operation.
happen.
could we wait until the finance committee is convened and then someone could review those?
That might be
bills?
a
I think that's
little
gonna be
long.
tough, especially with payroll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't,
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah, I think the advice might be to maybe approve the motion as long as there's no issues presented by the second reader in this case. So
Yeah.
that way things keep going and,
Okay.
and moving forward.
Right, right.
In this way.
And I'll be happy to do the bill review tomorrow, so that we can do that. So, and Suzanne, you seconded it? Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of approving the bills, pending a second review, please indicate by, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Excellent. So we'll get that done. First time for everything. Report of the superintendent, the report of the student reps is, we have no student reps, so we can continue on. And so here's our first part of flexibility, because we're actually running very much ahead, is the report of the superintendent. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Baker.
Great. So first action under report of the superintendent is always personnel appointments and resignations. And there are three things for your consideration in the agenda. And based on good work of our administrators and other requests, we have some others. We are in an enviable position in that we have had some wonderful applicants for open positions, and I think our administrators are really anxious to get your approval here. We are on the front end of hiring processes, and so this, by your making some approvals tonight, it lets these people know that they're ready to go, and so they can let their districts know that they're going to resign their positions. So it just helps in lots of different ways. So thanks for your patience with that. So we have Jennifer Billings, who is filling Derek Bartlett's position, at the high school next year full time. A nice note about that is that Jennifer was mentored by Derek, and so that is a connection that feels good, and we're happy to be moving ahead with Jennifer's commitment and dedication continuing in that case. Kristen Kara is a health teacher who's already working at the middle school in case you're like, wait a minute, I think we've seen that name not that long ago. We have non-renewable contracts, so whenever someone is hired after June 15th, then that's on a non-renewable contract, which means that when the position needs to be open and advertised for the next year, and that person is welcome to apply for that. So they're in an open hiring session, and so you will. That's one of the reasons that both Jennifer and Kristen are coming up, even though you might have seen them somewhat recently. So Kristen is a health teacher. She has previous experience in the district and has come back because of a lot of the really great things that she's heard about sort of what's happening and where things are going, and she's making a phenomenal difference at Mums already. And then you have Allison Underwood as the girls' lacrosse coach. Happy to see that. In addition to those, we have Margot Austin, who is, hi there, who is the high school's choice for the Flexible Pathways Coordinator. Margot comes to us from Spalding High School, where she has served in a similar capacity, as well as with Gear Up at VSAC, and she's served many years as an SAP counselor, which is a substance abuse prevention counselor. So all of those experiences come together in finding really great ways for kids to do cool things that relate to graduating. So we are really excited to welcome Margot. We're also presenting Wi-Fi Chan as the candidate to hire for the assistant principal position at Mums. This is a position where we had a number of really experienced, high quality leaders apply, which is, again, an enviable position to be in. One of the reasons that Phi rose to the top of the list is that he has experience and further interest in leading secondary mathematics initiatives. So he's done that in a number of other places. He comes to us most recently from Milton Elementary School. However, he also has a secondary background, and I think you'll learn more about his details shortly. But we're excited to welcome him to the administrative team at Mums. Carl Engelval is a paraeducator that's stepping in at the high school. I think Carl's familiar to you as well. Heather Smith is recommended as a school counselor at Mums. Heather has a unique background as mixing art in with counseling work. And so she's coming to us. She's in service right now up almost on the Canadian border, and is coming to the area and has a place to live, and is just really excited to be with us, and has chosen Mums. And I will say, kudos to Michaela and the teachers and staff there. Whatever they're doing over there, people are just clamoring to be on the team, and was my experience in interviewing all of the licensed staff that are presented to you tonight. So we're excited about those hires. Also have 2 resignations. One of them is from Susan Ogilvie, and that is her retirement. Susan has been in the district for 33.5 years, I think. And it's emotional. It's emotional to think about anybody who has spent their life with the just joy of being with kids for 33 years. Wow. And Susan and I have been talking since, the beginning of the school year about her thinking about this being her last year and really coming to that conclusion. And it's been a privilege to support her as she's kind of made that decision. And so her resignation is here for you to accept, with regret, of course. And Marissa Hennings also is a behavioral consultant at Mary Hogan, and she has taken a position in the area doing a little bit different work, and so we will be seeing her again. So she's taking a step up in her career, and so her resignation is here for you to accept. So there's just some stories. If this is not too much information, I'm happy to kind of introduce these candidates to you a little bit as we go through this hiring season. So
Great.
without taking too much. Okay, there we have it.
Do you mind repeating Margot's last name?
Austin.
Thank you.
Yes, Margot Austin.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Mary Heather.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes. So can I have a motion first, and then we can get a motion on the floor and then take questions?
I know we usually read out all the names, but can I move to accept the personnel appointments and resignations as read out by Superintendent Baker?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Perfect, since they're all not in our, on our agenda,
Right.
so that's awesome. Can I have a second? Jamie? Now questions. Steve?
Yeah, so Jen Billings, that's the middle school math teacher. She was a middle school math teacher for a long time.
Yes.
And the last time that she got an appointment, it was a temporary. Is this now a permanent again? Or
Yeah,
is it 1 year? Okay.
so, no, she is coming onto the district in full right. However, she is a probationary employee, just like any teacher would be as they come on. So, every teacher has a 2-year probationary period, and
Sure.
so she enters that regardless of past service. If there's a break in service, then that begins again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want the board to be mindful. I'm assuming that is it Wei Fai?
Yeah.
Is a person of Asian extraction. And my concern is that position, Esther had a lot of trouble in that position, and so I hope everybody's going to support him in that regard, because we've
We are excited to have all of the candidates, and we are really are excited to support all of them
Okay.
in every way. So I
Right.
appreciate you raising the point, and you can be assured that every candidate that joins this district, regardless, will be supported well.
I hope so.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none? All those, and I'm gonna do the same thing that Tricia did. All those in favor of approving the appointments and resignations as Dr. Baker reported, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Okay, Steve and Laura, thank you.
All right, getting off easy tonight, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Okay, so legislative update, I just wanted to really, let you know quickly that, the, House Ed, is marking up, H 454, which was the original bill that, the Agency of Ed put forth that had the full scope of the governor's proposal. So they are choosing to mark that up to reflect what they believe should happen. The Vermont Superintendents Association put together a framework that they felt would guide responsible incremental transformation within the state as we try to meet the objectives of educational quality, opportunity, and affordability across the state for all kids in important ways. And that's been received well, both by the House Ed Committee and by the Senate Ed Committee. I think they're beginning to come together around some of those points. The House has a work week this week on those pieces. CTE is, they're taking testimony in one or both committees this week on career and tech ed. And Nicole McTavish was here earlier in the legislative season, just expressing just deep concern and hoping that folks would pay attention to the changes that are being proposed in that. And so that's still something that we're watching very carefully, and I'll keep the board apprised as to where that is as well. It feels like the timeline for making broad changes will be more realistic. The superintendents across the state are asking that specific opportunities for students are identified prior to making large-scale decisions about how we might restructure, as a district, as a state, so that we're making sure that we're doing that in order to bring about the right things for kids. And I think there's some discussion about ensuring that projected savings can actually be realized in certain areas along the process. I think one big thing that's taking place is a discussion about whether the legislature should establish new districts. or whether or not there should be a working group that does so in preparation for the next legislative session with things like GIS mapping tools and other information that can inform large scale decisions like that. Essentially, any kind of regional district will really represent really large political bodies in Vermont. We don't have a county-wide structure that we really utilize, different from New York, for example. So establishing districts that cover large geographic areas is really a big deal for Vermont. And so there's a move that the superintendents support to be able to do that offline with experts that have actual information and resources to be able to put forward something that feels like it's considered into the next legislative session, and that appears to be gaining some support, with some particular parameters. So it's just a moment to be able to touch base around some of those things. I don't know if you have any questions or you've heard something that I can help to answer, but it was putting a pause in the meeting to be able to let that have some air.
So something new, we got an email from the Vermont School Board Association on, though it's not related to this, it is kind of related to it. The yield bill this year, applying all that surplus dollars to it so that they would create a cliff, which worries me that it really then, makes it really difficult the following year or two trying to dig out of that. At the same time, we're moving forward. Have you heard anything more about that yourself or Matt?
Can I make a suggestion, actually?
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interject, but you're talking about an update, the yield bill, that the board members have seen, but public probably hasn't seen.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Baker, would you mind just providing a quick
Sure.
summary of that first before answering
Thank
the
you.
question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm looking at Matt because on some level, we can do that. I think another approach could be to add that, to the superintendent's report in the next meeting, so
Sure,
that
sure.
we're able to really give you a fuller sense of what that looks like as a whole. And Matt has had chance to do calculations that he can bring with a slide, because that generally affects the
Yep.
tax rate. I don't know whether you whip those up this afternoon or whether,
No,
yeah.
no.
I heard it on the radio on the way in.
Yeah, and
So-
by no
Yeah.
means did I need to look at dollars.
Yeah.
It's more of concern that
Yep.
that is happening, because I do think it's going to cause some issues as we move
For
forward.
2027.
As we move forward here. And I
Yeah.
know the School Board Association is asking people to, touch bases with their legislators and that kind of thing to give them feedback.
Off the cuff, I can say that the, fiscal cliffs are a well-known thing. You use
Oh.
one-time money one year, you don't have it the next year.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know.
This one-time money, I think, is surplus, and so the state might run another surplus and have more money to continue to buy down. We also have things like the tax rate discount, which shrinks, so the state's buying less discount the
Yeah.
following year, and so that means the savings are realized in that way. And so there's some things that go one way and some things that go another way, and it's not all a cliff, but the magnitude matters in this case, and so that, I think, would lead to a number crunch for next time.
Yeah.
So we'll put that on for next time,
Yeah.
just to make sure we're understanding, fully where we are with that and what the impacts to our district might be.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Any other questions on that before we keep going?
Yeah.
I have not been following this nearly as closely as many others have, so, some of this might not be real, but something I appreciated in what the superintendent's advanced as a policy was as a proposal, was the, focus on construction costs, or just the reality of construction
Yes.
costs
Yes.
and transportation,
Yep.
both of which felt pretty lacking in the governor's proposal. And I'm curious, Wendy or anyone who paid attention to the testimony or to the committee, the Senate Education Committee that received this proposal, if there was any discussion on that and kind of what the legislature's response was, because those feel like such critical factors in any of the decision making that's going to happen, and I'm interested to know if other lawmakers appreciate that.
So, the proposal was provided to both the House and Senate Ed committees. And the most thorough discussion of it happened in the Senate Ed committee. The superintendents, who are my colleagues, they I think did just an excellent job, really helping the legislators understand that it's one thing to make a policy, let's even say of 15 students in a classroom, right? Which that is what our average will be in our K-5 classrooms across the district next year. So that on its face seems like that seems okay. But then, what does that mean when you're talking about some buildings that actually can't house that, and what does that look like, and so we are able to do multi-grades. There are other places in the state where you simply can't put that many kids together in a grade without consolidating schools. And so when you start to consolidate schools to meet a class size minimum, how do you do that if you don't have buildings that can take that many kids, in that way? So the superintendents did a nice job really helping them understand the role of school construction in any kind of moving to scale that happened in school size, which has to happen in many places related to classroom size, because many of our buildings are small, and they were built that way to begin with. So to that point, they covered that. They also made the point, which is why I think the idea of having some of the district work be done from the end of the legislative session to the beginning of the next one, is getting some traction. That nobody wants kids on a bus for more than a palatable amount of time. We differ a little bit by, say, 20 minutes as to what everybody thinks a palatable amount of time is, but there is a point at which it doesn't feel like we're doing the right thing for kids. And so part of that GIS mapping, which enables us to really look at where do kids live and what does that mean and how long are they on some sort of a bus, no matter what kinds of transportation districts are providing. I think those are the kinds of details that the superintendents in this testimony were able to draw the legislators' attention to in ways that were compelling enough to draw the committees together more than I've seen them drawn together so far, and that was very encouraging. Yeah, I would expect that level of interest in detail to continue on the part of the legislators.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any-
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Baker? I think Steve.
Yeah, Chair, I'm wondering if we could go back to the personnel appointments and resignations just for a second. I abstained from that vote because my spouse is employed by the district, so I just wanted to put that out there. But I'm kind of confused by one of the comments I heard from another board member. And I don't know what the intent of that comment was, but it seemed like there was a question about more or less support based on a nationality. And if that was the intent of that question, I just don't know that that's appropriate. I don't think that's how this system operates. I think the system should support any candidate who is doing whatever they are doing in whatever situation the same. And so I don't know if perhaps I misunderstood that comment. Maybe that's on me. I don't know. But it didn't quite land right with me. So I just did want to circle back to that because I think it's very important for everyone that we level set very clearly. And that's part of what I am doing here. And so if I'm in the wrong space there, let me know. But I did want to circle back on that. So.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And Mary Heather?
I'm making assumptions here, but I think it was probably in reference to some of the history of moms and students not respecting the former person in that role based on their race. And so I think the comment was probably around concern to make sure that this this role is supported well.
I can appreciate
That's
that.
what I think. I'm making assumptions though, so,
Yeah. Thank you for the context.
yeah.
Okay. It looks like Sean is here.
Okay.
Do you want to do your next one, or do you?
I
think this-
can do one more, and
And
well,
then-
I could even do both in a very short order. I
Okay.
think. Yep. So, just an update on Ripton enrollment. The last time we met, I let you know that I had asked parents to make sure that I understood if they, had different plans, for next year that would impact enrollment for 25, 26. By the 24th of March. And so I just have an update for you that based on some of that communication that I've received from parents, as we think our way through, how best to serve the students in Ripton, the most that the school could have would be 22 students. That includes students who are in the Wellness and Learning Center, which the district is in the process of thinking about how best to serve students that need a little bit of an alternative placement. And our small schools are something that we're thinking about carefully relative to that because of the staffing needs that are related to that, and also just they're smaller, and sometimes the alternative, programming that students might need that are accessing that resource is not always the best for a small school, as we've kind of gone through this year and done some learning. So that means that we might have 20 students in Ripton. If parents who've suggested that they would like an alternative arrangement for their child are all allowed to do so, we would have 14, that would be enrolled in the school, and that would be in one classroom of 6 and one classroom of 8, based on what I know today. So I just wanted to give you that as an update, as to kind of where we are at this point. And I don't expect that we will have additional information that you will need to consider relative to that. That is more than you have to kind of think about at this point. Operationally, I think we're just waiting for the board's guidance as to how we need to engage in planning and so on and so forth for the 25-26 year. The only other item on the superintendent's report for tonight, it relates to just making sure that the board is apprised of a couple of things that we are talking about across the district. I think you are used to this time of year conversations about grade configurations that begin to happen. And if you are familiar with Mary Hogan's process, right, they have multiple classrooms within the same grade. So thinking about, okay, do we need 3 sections of first grade or 4 sections of first grade? And how do we know that? So the Mary Hogan team is doing that specifically related to student data. Everybody at this point is looking at what is the student data that we have and what does that tell us about where to go from here. And part of the reason that that's an emphasis this year is the good work that Owen Prescott has done in preparing EduClimber, which is a system that pulls multiple sources of student achievement data together so that principals and school teams have a lot in the same place so that they really can begin to see how students do on large-scale assessments, how much progress are they making relative to screeners that are administered multiple times a year, and so forth. So those are underway. In Bridport and Shoreham, there's a little bit of a different conversation going on in that this year, for the first time, I think maybe ever, they will both have 3 classroom configurations. So you might remember that Shoreham's enrollment has dropped a little bit for next year because they have a large 5th grade class that's moving on, and a regular size, kindergarten that's coming in. So they will have a K1, a 2, 3, and a 4, 5, 3 classroom teachers. And in Bridport, they will have a K1, a 2, 3, and a 4, 5. So that's different in that prior to this year, not all of the classrooms were multi-grade. And with our focus and our resources around student data, staffs in all buildings, including those two, are thinking about how best to organize the way that they are going to staff and build classrooms and curricular materials and resources in order to help students make more than a year's worth of growth. This is a conversation that's happening across the district, because if a student is almost proficient in something, if they just make a year's worth of growth, well, then they're almost proficient next year in that thing too, because the standards move up, as the grades move up. So if we want a student to go from almost proficient in an area to proficient in an area, they have to make more than a year's worth of growth, roughly. That's right. Statisticians would say that's, it's an ish, in that respect. But that's the concept. And so in Bridport and Shoreham, right after we had a passed budget, I met with them immediately, in part because of the testimony that the Bridport teachers took so much care to put together, that expressed their worries about being able to do this and do this well in a multi-grade classroom. Understanding that classrooms of 15 are fine, but the multi-grade with enhanced academic expectations, as we're moving away from the pandemic, that's something that it was going to take a lot of diligence. So I met with both staffs right afterwards to say, where are you? What are you thinking? What do you need? We're about to put together lots of resources for you to help you over the summer. Other resources like some of the instructional specialists that we've talked about in literacy and math and so on and so forth. How are you feeling? And to a person, they all will do whatever they can for the students, and they will say we're going to be all in, and we will make this work. They also have permission to think about other things too. And so in the course of our conversation, the possibility of thinking about single grades, which can be achieved by combining kids from the two schools, still maintaining the schools, but perhaps having a K1-2 in one school and a 3-4-5 in another. I gave them permission to consider that if they felt that was important to think about in this time. So both staffs have taken time, thought about that. They met together this afternoon, and they would like my blessing, your blessing, to explore this with parents in both communities, not because it is the option that should be taken, but because before we make decisions about how best to support kids to make more than a year's worth of growth, parents, as the most important partners that we have, should be brought into a conversation so that we're all moving forward together, however that is, in that way. And so, in the past, any conversation that even touched the edges, as I'm understanding it, of two schools combining for anything was politically fraught and very challenging, and has led to a great deal of worry on the part of the teachers that they may somehow be, by trying to think with parents about what the options are for kids, may be stepping into zones they're not at all interested in stepping into. I have assured them that is not how I think about that, and I'm bringing it before you to ensure that you are also equally supportive of them having the conversations with their parent communities that they feel are important, and supporting however those work themselves out for the 25-26 years. So I guess this is just a check with you to make sure that you have an opportunity to weigh in on the matter if you think that's important prior to my giving them the go-ahead to explore things with their parents, and their communities as they would normally be doing in any other grade configuration situation if it was within a school, as has been done in the past. But this is just maybe a different option that may or may not be the right thing. So are there concerns or questions about that?
Mary Heather?
I guess the first one that comes to mind is just the policy implications and maneuvering around C30 and how the board the board's intended work on that policy coordinates with this idea and what, kind of which comes first. So I'm curious your thoughts about that and perhaps other board members, especially those who've served on policy.
Okay, and did you want to address that at this point, or I'll go ahead and just?
I mean, I guess my stock answer to that is, you know, if educators and parents tend to come together and believe something is really important for student learning, then, you know, finding the way through that to enable that to happen, you know, it would typically be my recommendation. I think there are ways to go about that, to establish a pilot, you know, that might be really important for these kids, if the teachers and parents come to the conclusion together that it is, which they are under absolutely no obligation or pressure to do. You know, that's just a discussion that we're having. And it's important that that's a discussion that parents are involved in, you know, so that it's not just here's what we're going to do, and you know, that's my perspective. They're able to say, well, here's what is of interest to us, and here's what our thinking is about that. The policy pieces can be, those workarounds could be done to enable a pilot, I think, without too much trouble.
Laura and then Ellen.
So we talked about this as a policy committee, and we had one very, I thought, energizing meeting about it before it kind of got shelved for some other things.
D6.
Right, D6 basically. And I guess my comment on it is, as a board, we serve our students' best interests, and I think it would be terribly short-sighted of us not to allow the teachers to have a conversation with their respective parent stakeholders to find the best way forward for those students.
Together, yeah.
Ellen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was a really interesting couple of weeks on the policy committee when we were considering this as a model, and I think one of the reasons we decided to not bring it to the full board was partly because we appreciated that a lot of process needed to happen outside of that committee to really explore, not just for these two schools, but for other schools that could combine similarly. I think pilot studies are great, but most importantly, like what Laura said, an open conversation between educators and parents about what's best for the kids is wonderful. If we're not willing to hear that, like if we're not willing to approve that conversation happening and then receive the information, then I think we're failing our job. So I appreciate you and the educators kind of putting your heads down and thinking about it, Wendy, and then I'm excited to hear what the feedback is.
So, anyone else?
I mean, I'll just say, I'm excited about this. Like, yes, by all means, have this conversation. I'm really intrigued to see what everyone gets back with their feedback. I think it's great that these more out of the box, maybe just to the edge of the box ideas are being considered, and I love that it seems like this is coming from the educators and their experience and recommendations, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I have every faith in our educators, especially when they are working in concert with parents, you know, and determining what's best for kids. And so our office will support that as needed in that way. And I think it's important, you know, to ensure that should they choose to do something a little bit different, that really has no bearing on, you know, the things that may come in the future relative to state things or other policy communication things. You know, it's an opportunity for them to be thinking and working together and doing what's best for kids. So if that conversation begins to have some legs, then our office will make sure that the operational elements, you know, feel okay. And if it meets those two tests, then I would like to see them come back to you for a request for an exception relative to C30 in that way for a pilot year at the end of April. So, you know, it's not a long time between now and then, but I think enough time to get a sense of where we're going and then allow people to think through it. Either way, either with multi-grade situations where, you know, the staff works together in ways they can, or perhaps aligns units and does some things with kids together even in that respect, or, you know, as they're thinking, you know, a little bit more broadly out of the box. So thank you for that time. That concludes my report.
Did anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, great. Well, thank you. And you don't need anything else from us at this point?
I do not.
You got, okay,
No?
excellent. Okay, so we do have our,
7:15.
yes, and we have our visitor here. And so, what we'll do now is go up to item F on the agenda, which is our executive session. And it's for confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services per 1 VSA 313A1F. And so first, what I'd like to do is have a motion to move into executive session. Suzanne?
I move that we go into executive session for confidential attorney-client communications per 1 BSA 313A1F.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of our moving into an executive session, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll give